Hello, hello, hello. How are we all doing? Ready to go in Austria. Feels like I've been live constantly this weekend. We're back again. I know. Sprint qualifying, sprint race qualifying. Now, of course, the big one, the Grand Prix, where it really matters in the Grand Prix weekend scheme of things. Of course, a few points available for the sprint yesterday, but the big points available this time around. How are we all doing then? Axel, hello. Sally in the chat as well. Saigon, Raheem, Zora, M, little squiggle N, Shivam, Agao, 1013. How we going? He should be here. The slow mode is active. Don't know what the timer is between each message. I think it's like 3 seconds. It's just so that I don't get like spam or like bots. Used to be a real problem with bots on live streams, and it just stops them from being able to come in and constantly. But I am here, don't worry. We are all set. We're ready to go. I was just getting a couple of bits and pieces loaded up in the background. How are we all feeling? Finally, the McLaren shirt is back. It is out of the wash. It is here once again. F1 fan, how you doing? YGGA, hello. Kenta in there as well. Let's get going. Shall we have a little touch upon the Drivers and Constructors Championship? Because it hasn't changed too much, but obviously updated slightly since the sprint race. So worth just kind of touching upon before we get into the actual Grand Prix itself. And it's a little bit frustrating more than anything else, I would say, because it does feel like finally Max Verstappen is under pressure. It feels like Max Verstappen is having to fight with the Red Bull, with the McLarens, with the Ferraris, Red Bull under a bit of pressure. It does just feel like he's got too much of a lead, even though, we're only about halfway through the season. Just feels like Max Verstappen is kind of out of reach of everybody else at the top of the championship. 227 points for the Dutchman. And a good point made by the team on commentary yesterday, the fact that obviously with the sprint win, that makes it 24 points from the sprint races that he's taken so far this season. That's effectively another race win. So he's almost on another race win's worth of points just purely from the sprint race, which is an effective way of keeping that kind of distance in the championship, right? It just means that if somebody else is going to try and catch up to him, I don't know, they need to win an extra race on top of the fact that they're going to have to be competitive in as many weekends as possible. Lando can be world champion. It's just too far, I think, at this point. The voices are getting even louder. Like in your head? So what do you mean? Going to be another win for Verstappen? It does feel that way. Max Verstappen is very, very quick around the Austrian Red Bull ring. But then so is Lando Norris. Lando Norris now second in the championship. Overtook Charles Leclerc last weekend in Spain. And elongating that lead a little bit during the sprint. Will be looking to kind of put himself out of danger range, I think, in the next few races. You want to kind of have a race in hand. You're looking at like 20 points or so. If you can get a 20-point lead over somebody, it means that they need to do something special, and you need to have a weekend where you don't pick up any points whatsoever to really close that gap. Like similar to what we've got between Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz in 3rd and 4th place. Like I feel like that's quite a good gap that Charles Leclerc has now got over his teammate. Sergio Perez in 5th place, Oscar Piastri in 6th place. It still just feels a little bit off Oscar Piastri. It feels like he should be closer to that top 5, but George Russell, Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes cars kind of catching up behind him. That top 8, there's going to be a lot of switches throughout the season. It feels like that top 8 could go either way from sort of Lando Norris backwards. Could be a lot of movement in and around that. Fernando Alonso looks like he's kind of locked in 9th place there, doesn't he? Doesn't feel like Fernando is going to be able to sort of catch up to the top 8, but neither does it feel like anybody behind him is going to be able to close that gap either. And then it's kind of, again, a little bit of a mix. Feels like Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll maybe have done enough to kind of put themselves 10th or 11th, but the rest of the grid, Daniel Ricciardo, obviously Ollie Behrman in 13th place, we don't think we'll see again throughout the season. Depends if Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz are able to hold on to every single race so far, or maybe even if we see him in a Haas car later on in the season. Did pick up the sprint victory, did Ollie Behrman, in the Formula 2 weekend here in Austria. Then we've got Nico Hülkenberg, 14th, 6 points. He's trying to get kind of over that Ollie Behrman barrier. Starting in the points today, could be the opportunity to finally get himself up into 13th. Pierre Gasly in 15th, Ocon in 16th. Also, the Alpines looking like they really want to try and get some points this weekend. Obviously, started 8th and 9th in the sprint race. Didn't end up anywhere near there. But if they can finish 8th or 9th today, that would be much, much better for them. Obviously, a little bit harder from where they've qualified in terms of the Grand Prix compared to the sprint, though. Alex Albon then behind in 17th place. Kevin Magnussen with 1 point in 18th place. Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas, and Logan Sargent yet to score points. How we stand in the driver's standings. It's me, Dice. If you remember, I'm just on my laptop. Oh, I see what you mean. Ignore the username. Hango. Interesting. Hello, Sharky and Bones Multi-Language 11. That is a mouthful. That is a mouthful. Red Bull Ring gives buff to Oracle Red Bull and VCarb. I don't know about that. If you look at the qualifying times and where they're kind of situated, wouldn't say Sergio Perez has got a buff. Daniel Ricciardo, Yuki Tsunoda, maybe a little bit. But also, you know, we've seen Yuki Tsunoda starting in the point scoring places quite often this season. Daniel Ricciardo closest in 11th place, but not so sure there's too much of an advantage in being in a Red Bull car or a Red Bull sister car, however you want to call the VCarb team, even around the Red Bull Ring. Good afternoon, Mr. Applicable. Thank you, Trev. Appreciate it. Is K-Mag safe from one incident away from getting a race ban? No. He picked up 10 penalty points in the first, 8 races? Something along those lines. Monaco was like a bit of a... Like, if he'd have been given a penalty for that incident with Sergio Perez, he would have been banned from a race. So, yeah, we could see Ollie Behrman kind of in a Haas car, especially if Kevin Magnussen decides to get involved in an incident or two. I think Nico Hülkenberg was actually given a couple of points for that incident with Fernando Alonso in the sprint race, was given a 10-second penalty and a couple of points on his license. So Nico Hülkenberg also picking up some points for the Haas team, just not in the way that they'd have hoped. I feel like they must have picked up more penalty. Yeah, they must have, right? They've picked up more penalty points this year than they have actual Grand Prix points, because Kevin Magnussen has picked up 10. Nico Hülkenberg, I think, is on 3 or 4. They're bricking up some penalty points pretty consistently over in the Haas garage. Am I British? I am indeed. Silverstone coming up next weekend as well. Home Grand Prix for George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, and myself. And I do like to kind of combine us four. The four of us are very similar to one another. Why is Joe's name where his last name should be? What do you mean? Because I think it wasn't it in Formula 2? They used to put Guan Yu, or Formula 3 maybe? They used to put Guan Yu on the car, and then he basically told everyone, he was like, no, you should actually put Joe on the car. Yeah, Joe is his family name. It's just that it's swapped around in China. Like, your family name kind of comes first, I think. I don't know. He decides. Joe Guan Yu got asked about it. He said, this is it. Moved on. Like, hello from Japan. There you go. Edward might be able to confirm. Why is Joe Guan Yu's name, like, in the standings? Why does he have Joe rather than Guan Yu? Like, if you can look down here in 20th place, he goes by Joe rather than Guan Yu. When did I start watching Formula 1? Back in 2008. Maybe even earlier, 2007, 2008, something like that. Should we run through the starting 20 then? Oh, no. We have to do predictions. If you did, get your predictions in over on the community tab. Is available. I kind of put it out on a Wednesday. You get your predictions in early. So none of this, you know, watching the sprint, watching the qualifying and getting them in later. Oh, that is a short. Let's have a little look. Let's get some predictions in over on the community tab. If you want to get involved over on the community tab, there's always some really good discussions going on over there. And a lot of it does influence the videos that come out and also these live streams as well. So if you want anything to kind of come up on the live streams or any predictions in, get them in there. Let's have a little look. Caleb said, I think Ferrari are going to bounce back after Canada and Spain. They certainly look much better than they did in Canada. Similar to Spain, I think. I think what we didn't see in the sprint was the real battle between the Mercedes and the Ferraris play out. I think with the DRS, it was just a little bit too short for the tyre stint to really kind of play into it. And therefore, it does feel like today we might see a proper battle between sort of Leclerc, Sainz, Russell, Hamilton for those kind of 4 spots, either for the podium. So with Oscar Piastri kind of dropping out of position, in my opinion, maybe he won't be able to get back up there in the McLaren. We could actually see a real battle for 3rd place and a real battle for the victory between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Although I do feel like the Red Bull does have the run at it. I mean, Whiskey Blues, though, disagrees. He has podium, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc in 3rd place, with McLaren being the best team of the weekend and the flop team being Sauber. I mean, you definitely could say Sauber look like the flop team of the weekend so far. They look absolutely abysmal. Oh, thank you, NGNO Fan Club, for the super chat. Much, much appreciated. An incredible way of supporting the channel. And all of the money that does get donated, of course, goes back into the channel, making these things happen and getting more and more content out to you guys. But massive thank you, mate. I don't know if there was a little message with it. There was not a little message with it. Just appreciation. Thank you so much. Of course, the best way you can support the streams straight off the bat is a super chat. But if you haven't got the money, you know, it's tight times, just leaving a like on the video is the best way to support. Let's have a little look then. Podium. It's me, Mario 75 said Max, Oscar, Charles. Okay, there's a little bit of a mix. I think everybody is kind of hoping that Charles Leclerc can kind of get back up to where he is. Although F1 with Richie Viron says George on the podium as well. So little bit of a Leclerc-George battle happening in the comments. A comeback for the V-Carb boys, says statistically hopeful. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo starting in 11th place. Could happen. Definitely in the grand scheme of things. Windows wasn't 63, has Hamilton winning the Grand Prix, going back-to-back sort of podium in the last race. First podium of the season from Lewis Hamilton, and then just going one further, getting another victory in the Mercedes car. Would be nice to see Lewis Hamilton pick up a victory sometime this season, just as a little bit of a thank you to the Mercedes team, obviously leaving at the end of the year. It does feel like maybe he can do, if he's able to do that, maybe that would be like the perfect send-off for him and the team. When it comes to the struggle, is it more on the driver or the team? Either or. Happy to go either way. Some people have gone Sauber as their struggle, and I feel like they've absolutely nailed it. Other people have gone flop team Aston Martin, struggle Checo. So it's interesting. There's a lot of 50-50s in this. Like a lot of people saying, no, it'll be Ferrari on the podium, or it'll be Mercedes on the podium. A lot of people saying V-Carb in the points, Alpine in the points. So there's a bit of a 50-50 going on in the predictions, but great to get involved. Thank you guys for putting in your predictions over on the community tab. If you want to get involved in next week's predictions, it is there. Goes up on the Wednesday. And of course, we're live once again for the Silverstone Grand Prix weekend as well next weekend. Let's move over. Constructors Championship is something that we haven't touched upon yet either. Let's quickly run through that. Red Bull, 301 points so far. Looks like, again, they're kind of 50-odd points ahead of Ferrari, 80 points ahead of McLaren. Should be able to take it home, but Sergio Perez really not doing his bit for the team right now. And it feels like that might be the difference, right? Sergio Perez, if the Ferraris, if the McLarens, if the Mercedes can continue to kind of pick up points and continue to pick up more points than Red Bull per weekend, the gaps are going to get smaller and smaller. And Red Bull might find themselves under pressure. It does feel like it would be towards the end of the season, though, you know, maybe 3-4 races to go. We'll have a real battle between those teams at the top of the standings if we can continue on this trajectory. McLaren, though, look like they are really on the run to catch up with Ferrari. And Mercedes, you know, they're on half the amount of points of the Ferrari car. Can they really close that gap? I'm not too sure. I think it's going to be a tall order for Mercedes to run up towards Ferrari and even Red Bull. But maybe they can get... No, because I think McLaren will end up second. So I think Mercedes are kind of locked into fourth place at this point. Aston Martin definitely locked into fifth place unless VCarb pull in some real solid performances. They're in sixth place. Again, kind of feel a little bit too far away from the Haas's and Alpines right now to really consider them under pressure. It's Haas, Alpine, Williams, though. That trio that really could go either way. You've got Hülkenberg putting in some solid performances recently. Kevin Magnussen in the sprint earlier on this weekend was stunning, finished in 9th place. Alpine, though, looking like they've really revitalized their team. Ocon and Gasly picking up points over the last couple of weekends, finishing 9th and 10th place pretty consistently now if you look at the last few races. And then Williams in 9th place, Alex Albon picking up those couple of points. Does feel like they are the 9th fastest team right now, though. Stake Sauber still looking for that first point of the season, and it does not feel like it is on its way this weekend in Austria. But let's have a little look at how they've qualified then. I'll pop the starting grid up for you with about 10 minutes before the Grand Prix is set to get underway. Get a silverback orangutan, 1 point in the chat here. What does that even mean? Sometimes I read things and I just have no idea. Hello, Emma. How you doing? Oh, that is somebody's actual name. Platylibium obutescalum. What on earth? Huh? Good. Yeah. I think Alpine might move up some more. They've been doing really good. They have been doing really good, actually. Gasly feels a little bit out of position there in 13th place. Felt like the Alpine did have a little bit more than the RB, but Daniel Ricciardo putting in a really solid lap, getting that 11th place and kind of starting right on the periphery of points. Does feel like we'll see a battle between Hülkenberg, Ocon, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Gasly, Tsunoda. Those 6 cars in the Haas's, the Alpines, and the RBs seem to be really amongst it this weekend. Maybe the Aston Martins also start to join that, but I don't know. Fernando Alonso's looked a little bit out of shape, and Lance Stroll was actually really solid in the sprint race, did a really good job of defending that 10th place position from both of the Alpines, but he's going to need a stunning start to get anywhere near the Alpines once again in the actual Grand Prix itself. And then it does feel like Williams, Stroll, Williams, Sauber, I was reading it down. Williams and Sauber kind of feel like the two teams that are just going to be right at the bottom of the standings, unfortunately. Albon starting the furthest forwards of that, but still didn't manage to get into Q2. Bottas and Joe have really struggled this weekend. Sargent looking like he had a little bit more pace in the sprint qualifying, but not able to find it when it came to the real qualifying sessions. Yeah, it's one of those weekends, unfortunately, for those guys towards the back end of the pack. Hope Max to do a grand slam. He's on for one, isn't he? Obviously, pole position in both of the races. And then also looking for the victory, the second victory of the weekend, winning the sprint yesterday morning as well. Why do you want people crashing so much? Is that a thing? Everyone looking for some crashes. Not sure we'll see too many crashes today, to be honest with you. There's a lot of runoff area, so the drivers won't, have to hold on to the track in the same way. Did see a few little collisions in the Formula 2, though. Just bits and pieces. Gets very, very tight down towards turn 3. I think is that where you're most likely to see something like a crash occur. Maybe down towards turn 4 as well. They're the kind of overtaking opportunities. Gets very, very tight there at turn 3. And a lot of drivers go for that turn 4 as their real overtaking chance, because then you can close the door in turn 5 and turn 6. Australian here. South Aussie. Amazing. We do have a real mix of... That must be really late in Australia, no? I'm just getting my time zones wrong. Why is Joe always at the bottom? Just because the Sauber car is really fallen off a cliff since this. I mean, they had so many problems at the start of the year, didn't they? They had the real issues with all of their pit stops, and then they couldn't get that right. And that was when the car looked like it was a little bit quicker than, you know, the Alpines or even the Williamses. But now, just the car's fallen off a cliff. They've still got quite a lot of problems behind the scenes. They know that they're in like a transitional year, so it's very difficult to judge like how much effort is really being put into like now and how much effort is being put into 2026 and the kind of balance between those two things, whether the team is getting that quite right or whether they've just decided, you know, actually we're going to have 2 years where we don't really go for it. And then when Audi come in 2026, we're in a better position because we're able to really kind of hone in on that. Kind of saw a similar thing with Haas at the beginning of the 2022 season, if you remember. Like, because they'd completely sacked off 2021 by putting in 2 rookies and just having the worst season I think we've seen from a team in a very long time. Like, Haas did that in 2021 and then started the 2022 season really, really strong. So maybe Sauber are doing something like that. They're like, okay, we just sack off these couple of seasons, kind of, you know, turn up, race, don't really care if we finish in 10th place. And then coming into 2026, when they try and really kind of push forwards in terms of that. Daniel Ricciardo points, please. On the cusp. He's very much on the cusp. Does feel like Nico Hulkenberg, though. Just he's always there, isn't he, Nico Hulkenberg? Always starts in the points and then falls back a little bit. So Daniel Ricciardo points are definitely available, and I would see Daniel Ricciardo kind of overtaking Nico Hulkenberg as that opportunity for him to get into the points. As it stands, I do think that Max Verstappen will hold on to that pole position and hold on to the victory. I think it will be a battle, though. I think Lando Norris has got the ability, especially if they can get the medium compound tire really in that window that they found it in Spain. And if the problem is Red Bull are a little bit better around here than they are in Spain as well, though. So it's kind of that back and forth. But I do have hope for Lando Norris. I do think that the victory is there. But I just backed Max Verstappen to continue his incredible driving because it is Max Verstappen at the end of the day. Then we've got George Russell starting just behind in the podium places. As I said a minute ago, I think Russell, Sainz, Hamilton, Leclerc, Piastri, that could be a real strong battle between all of those. I think the fact that we've got, you know, that interchange, it's not like 2 Mercedes, 2 Ferraris. The fact that we've got Mercedes, Ferrari, the fact that they'll go on slightly different strategies to one another as well throughout the Grand Prix, I'm imagining, it's going to be a real tight battle. We saw it in Spain to an extent where Russell kind of got a little bit unlucky with his strategy. Hamilton went for a different strategy and came out on top. And then we could see that interchange between those 4. And Oscar Piastri does have the pace this weekend. But it was really unjust, actually, that he got dropped down to 7th place. I know that track limits are track limits, and you can argue, well, the wheel was over the white line. It's a bit like football, I guess. Like, if the ball crosses the line, it's in. If the wheel crosses the line, then you have broken track limits and the lap time is deleted. But I don't know, Oscar Piastri also dipped his tyre in the gravel. So, yes, he went off the track, but did he gain time by going into the gravel? I don't think so. And actually, we saw a fairly similar thing in China. We saw, was it Lando Norris? Was it Fernando Alonso? I can't remember now. We saw in China, somebody did a similar sort of thing. I think it might have been Lando Norris. Kind of went into the gravel, had his lap time deleted, even though he'd gone like 5 meters into the gravel and clearly lost time by doing so. He had his lap time deleted, but then reinstated. And I was kind of hoping that Oscar Piastri would also get his lap time reinstated because he'd gone into the gravel, and clearly you lose time when you go through the gravel. So surely like breaking that track limits actually slowed him down rather than speeding him up, is what I would argue anyway if I was Oscar Piastri. But by the by, starts in 7th place. Sergio Perez behind him in 8th. Thank you, Myths, for subscribing to the channel. First subscriber of the day, I think. Appreciate that massively. And on our way to 90,000. I think we clicked over 86,000 though in the last couple of days. Haven't really been on it in terms of keeping up with the statistics this week just because I've been feeling rubbish. Yeah, we have 86,200 subscribers now. 86,201 because we got that subscription from Myths. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Massively helps us moving forwards. NGNO Fan Club again with a super chat. Thank you so much, mate. You are being very, very generous today. Appreciate that massively. What are my predictions on Newey's future? Oh, I don't really know, to be honest with you. I think it's such a weird, complex. I know that Ferrari are in talks with him, Aston Martin are in talks with him, Williams are in talks with him. It depends on what he needs to do, right? At the end of the day, like, if he wants to stay in Formula One, the doors are open for him anywhere that he wants to go. If he actually does just want to stop being in Formula One, like, we haven't really thought about that as an option. Like, maybe he does just not want to be in Formula One for a bit. He's been in there for a very, very long time. He's worked in and around Formula One for almost his entire career. Maybe he just wants to do something a little bit different. He is eventually going to leave. It's a bit like the Fernando Alonso conundrum, isn't it? It's like, when does Fernando Alonso retire? Because it just looks like he's going to stay forever. But there will be a day where Fernando Alonso actually has to stop racing. We're not going to see like a 70-year-old Fernando Alonso fighting for like a 40-year-old Oscar Piastri. Why can't we see the race? Because I, unfortunately, do not have the millions of pounds that Sky Sports pay for the streaming rights to the Grand Prix. But I show you as much as I possibly can. How long until the race start? Got about a couple of minutes until we get underway. What are my thoughts on people wanting F1 in the Olympics? How do you think that would work? I mean, it won't. There could be like karting in the Olympics, though, right? That could definitely be a thing. Olympic karting in some way or another. Because there's like, obviously, the cycling events. So that's a race, isn't it? You know, the cycling events in one way or another. And there, isn't there like BMXs or something? So like BMXs are now in the Olympics. Maybe a karting kind of thing in the Olympics would make sense. But to be honest with you, I don't think it would. You know, you're not going to convince Lewis Hamilton, I don't think, to go to the Olympics and sit in a cart. He is very much more than fine with being a 7-time Formula One world champion, trying to get to be an 8-time Formula One world champion. You know what I mean? I think like if it was a karting thing, it would maybe have to be similar to what they have in boxing, where you have to be a rookie. Favorite F1 driver? I'm a McLaren boy. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are my men. I do also like Pierre Gasly. I've got Pierre Gasly like hat behind my head that you can't actually see. There you go. Pierre Gasly hat and helmet behind my head as well. Do like Pierre. Do like Yuki. A substantial Yuki fan as well. Let's get underway, though. Let me get a couple of bits and pieces loaded up in the background. Thank you guys all so much for joining us, watching. We are about to get underway here in Austria. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you are enjoying the stream, hit the like button as well. It is the best way of supporting the stream and showing that you are enjoying the content. Just going to quickly get everything loaded up in the background then. Drivers getting ready to get underway with the formation lap. If you want to watch along with me, I will let you know when the drivers kind of get themselves into position. What about old school driver? I was a Jenson Button boy back in the day. It's how I became a McLaren fan. And it was quite simple. I thought he was quite good. And he shares the same initials as me. But, you know, I was a child. That was how... It's one of those things, right? Because no one in my family was like a big Formula One fan. Like my dad is into motorsport, but he's more of a MotoGP guy, races motorbikes. So no one was really into it. I just kind of really got into Formula One. And then, yeah, it was as simple as he has the same initials as me. And I am a child. So I'm going to support him. A bit like the fact that I'm a Liverpool fan because I really liked Fernando Torres. That was it. That was it. Really liked Fernando Torres, my favorite player at the time. I was a child. Fernando Torres became the man. Became Liverpool fan, have been Liverpool fan since. Formation lap getting underway then. Max Verstappen heading up towards the top of turn 1 and around the first corner. Let's have a little look and get this set up, shall we? Oh, this is a little bit ahead. My multi-viewer is a little bit ahead of my live timing, so I'm just going to change that up. Hopefully that loads within good time. Oh, NGNO fan club again. Thank you, mate. Loves a sticker. You can send a little message with those as well. Massively, massively appreciative, though. Cool runnings, but with Formula 1 cars. Yeah, a little bit like bobsled, I guess. Thanks for subscribing, Formula 1 World, to the channel. Massively appreciate it. Have a little bit of a setup. Bada bing, bada boom. Hit this, hit that. There we go. Formation lap still underway. Apologies that this will load itself. In fact, I can hide it for a moment just while we get a couple of bits sorted. Max Verstappen coming around the final corner already. Lando Norris getting very, very close to the rear end of Max Verstappen. I think just letting the Dutchman know that he is there. Right up underneath the Red Bull. George Russell slotting into 3rd place behind as well. I think he's just trying to back up the pack a little bit because he doesn't want to be sitting stationary for too long, especially starting on the medium tyres. Just don't hold on to the temperature quite as well as the soft compound tyres do. But of course, the medium tyre, the better race tyre here in Austria. It does feel like it will be kind of mediums and hards. Possibly 1 stop, maybe a 2-stop race. Depends on kind of where the tyres end up going and whether there's a safety car, red flag, those kind of things as well. Let's pop this up. Going to see the Williams of Logan Sargent coming around the back. Zhou Guanyu is indeed starting from the pit lane yet. Swapping around a few components in the power unit department. And there it is then. Green flag is waved and we're going to get underway for the full Grand Prix here in Austria. Max Verstappen is going to get us underway with Lando Norris to his right-hand side. George Russell, a really good start as well. And trying to do the same as he did in Spain and go around the outside of Lando Norris. But Lando Norris defends from George Russell. Hamilton going side by side with Carlos Sainz as well. And Hamilton trying to go around the outside of Sainz. They're going to be side by side up to turn 3. I think Carlos Sainz is going to try and dive down the inside. And there's so little room between them. And Carlos Sainz has had to yield and given the place back. Hamilton up into 4th place. Then Oscar Piastri also with a stunning start up into 6th place with a move on Sergio Perez. Although Sergio Perez is going to try and come back down the inside of Oscar Piastri down towards turn 4. It's going to close him off. Oh, Oscar Piastri onto the gravel. And that has lost Oscar Piastri a couple of places there. Charles Leclerc also comes up the inside of Oscar and jumps back up into 7th place. Piastri back down to 8th where he started. Ocon and Hulkenberg have also swapped positions, now 9th and 10th. Kevin Magnussen with a stunning start up into 11th place. Gasly in 13th still. Charles Leclerc, box. Oh, it's an issue for Charles Leclerc. He's lost part of his front wing. That's from contact. Don't know who it was with. Must have been down towards turn 1 whilst we were watching the drivers running around. Charles Leclerc also followed into the pits by, I think, Logan Sargent with some contact and possible damage as well. DRS is now enabled. Max Verstappen leads. And it's a new front wing for Charles Leclerc. Need to know what happened there. Must have been at the start where he lost a position to Oscar Piastri and Sergio Perez as well. Sergio Perez now up into 6th place. Managed to get that position back from Oscar Piastri. Hamilton and Russell now looking side by side at one another into turn 4. Russell holds on to the podium place for now. It is Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, Perez, Piastri, and then Nico Hülkenberg up the inside of Esteban Ocon takes 8th place. Ocon back at him, though, and gets all the way through. Lovely stuff in the midfield, and Hülkenberg's going to have a go at him again. Go on, Hülkenberg. Yes. Hülkenberg up into 8th place. Ocon now into 9th, and Kevin Magnussen 10th. So both of the Hasses up into the point-scoring places. Pierre Gasly now up into 11th place, has got past Daniel Ricciardo, and wonderful stuff. Fastest lap now goes to Lando Norris. Lewis Hamilton is going to be on the radio. Surely he's right under the rear wing of George Russell. Looks to have the faster of the two Mercedes cars, and he's going to go for it down into turn 3 as Lewis Hamilton comes up the inside, and George Russell has to give way. Lewis Hamilton takes the podium place from his teammate. Is George Russell going to come back at him down towards turn 4, though? DRS open for George Russell, and it looks like Hamilton had to give the place back to George Russell because he didn't have the ability to defend with Russell DRS wide open. And the two Mercedes looking like they're going to interchange positions at this point. Lando Norris 1.8 seconds behind Max Verstappen, maybe just doing what he did in Spain, biding his time a touch and waiting for Max Verstappen to lose out on his tyres a little bit later in the stint. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton still within DRS range of one another, though Hamilton will use that DRS again down the pit straight as they come now. Russell and Hamilton still in that way. Lewis Hamilton is leaving the track and gaining an advantage under investigation on that move on Carlos Sainz at the beginning of the race. Carlos Sainz still running in 5th place. Sergio Perez and Oscar Piastri behind, all with DRS behind George Russell. And we have got Nico Hülkenberg running in 8th place, just keeping Esteban Ocon at bay down into turn 3. Ocon had a little look, but I don't think he's going to be able to get past Nico Hülkenberg this time around. Stays behind. It is the Haas and Alpine battle with Yuki Tsunoda now behind his teammate Daniel Ricciardo as well. Alonso and Albon having a little battle with the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll also behind. Bottas and Zhou Guanyu catching up towards the back of the pack. Obviously, Zhou Guanyu starting from the pit lane up into 18th. Charles Leclerc and Logan Sargent dropping down to 19th and 20th place, having to stop and pit after the first lap. Charles Leclerc's race now going to be a real tough battle for him. Just keeping an eye on his pace in comparison to the rest, and unfortunately he's not looking quick. A 110.7 from Leclerc, maybe just having to do something a little bit different on his tyres. Hold on to them for a little bit longer, but not really closing up to the cars at the front, even though he's on a fresh set of tyres. Hamilton also closing in on Russell again. DRS open down towards turn 4 for the Mercedes driver. Doesn't look close enough to his teammate to get that move done now, though. And I don't think we'll have a go at the attack. Charles Leclerc front wing damage, unfortunately for him. Here is a little replay of the race start, finally. Okay, let me keep an eye on Charles Leclerc then. Started. Oh, Sergio Perez got an insane start. Dived up the inside of Charles Leclerc. And Charles Leclerc, I think, maybe sandwiched a bit because Perez is around the inside, Piastri around the outside, and Leclerc, yeah, just couldn't really get out of it. I think Charles Leclerc's front wing touches Oscar Piastri's rear right wheel, sorry. And Charles Leclerc, I think, just gets sandwiched a touch, to be honest. Yeah, he's pinched. He can't go further inside because Sergio Perez is there. Can't go further outside because Oscar Piastri is there. Neither of those drivers knew what was happening. I think Charles Leclerc does try and back out of it. It's just that little bit too late from Charles Leclerc, and he does make contact with Oscar Piastri. You can see that from the onboard of him and the McLaren as well, losing a little bit of pace. That's why McLaren of Oscar Piastri dropped in behind Sergio Perez, then tried to come back at him at turn 3, did Piastri. Sergio Perez did a great job. Just carried a bit more momentum down towards turn 4. And Piastri actually on the radio complaining about that move from Sergio Perez. Of course, was pushed into the gravel. Oh, and then just closes the door. And yeah, Piastri does have to escape to the gravel so that he doesn't wipe himself and Sergio Perez out of the race. They're running in 6th and 7th place. Piastri is still within DRS range and actually closing in on Sergio Perez. But Perez still within DRS range of Hamilton as well, so doesn't have that key advantage that they need. Oh, what's happened there? Lewis Hamilton has dropped behind Carlos Sainz. What's happened here? Hamilton losing a place? Yeah. Hamilton trying to get back in front of Carlos Sainz then. Was battling with his teammate just a couple of laps ago. Carlos Sainz trying to cover the inside. Lewis Hamilton trying to go around the outside of Carlos Sainz once again. And unfortunately, not this time. The Ferrari just covers him off. There's Oscar Piastri also battling with Sergio Perez. The McLaren trying to get around the outside of the Red Bull. He's going around the outside of turn 6. And Piastri, what a move that is. Round the outside of turn 6, covers him off for turn 7. Piastri up into 6th place. That is a stunning overtake and a move that you don't often see there. And Sergio Perez now back down into 7th place. Piastri 1.5 seconds off the back of Lewis Hamilton. Could catch up to the back of these two as they squabble. Carlos Sainz starts lap 8 of the Grand Prix in 5th place. In 4th place. But Lewis Hamilton, DRS open, Ferrari behind him. Oh, it's going to be close. Hamilton, is he going to go for turn 3? No. Weaves in. Makes Carlos Sainz think about it, though. And now Lewis Hamilton having a look at Carlos Sainz down towards turn 4. Is Carlos Sainz going to have enough this time around? Yeah, Hamilton not able to close up in the way that he was last lap. And Carlos Sainz comfortably in front of Lewis Hamilton. Sergio Perez trying to come back at Oscar Piastri, but Oscar Piastri does get through those DRS detection zones and away from Sergio Perez. Still half a second in it. Piastri still needs to continue that pace. He is actually losing time a little bit to Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton in front. Sergio Perez also dropping off the pace a touch. It's also Hülkenberg, Ocon, Magnussen and Gasly with Daniel Ricciardo also all in a little bit of a DRS train behind the Haas of Hülkenberg. But Hülkenberg holding on to 8th place will be massively helpful. Oh. The Ruva, thank you for the £2, mate. Thank you for the vids. You're my friend's teacher. Well, I try. What happens to Leclerc? Took front wing damage at the start of the Grand Prix. Had to change his front wing. Dropped all the way to the back of the pack. And his pace isn't really there either. Is Charles Leclerc. 110.7. Ah, that's what it was. Hamilton having to actually let Carlos Sainz back past. So was deemed to gain an unfair advantage on the first lap where he gained an advantage by leaving the racetrack, was Lewis Hamilton. So had to give Carlos Sainz the position back. And that's why Hamilton is now running in 5th place. Still looking at the back of Carlos Sainz, but nowhere near as close as he was the last couple of laps. Hamilton maybe just giving himself a bit of a gap to run into. But doing very well indeed is Carlos Sainz, now holding on to 4th place. Max Verstappen, though, has disappeared off into the distance at the front of the Grand Prix. He was hoping that Lando Norris was going to have something. But it's going to have to be towards the end of the stint once again for Lando Norris, similar to what we saw sort of in Imola maybe and in Spain, where he just has the advantage on tyres towards the end of the stint. Is the only thing that could play into Lando Norris's favour, because he's now 4 seconds behind Verstappen. Russell then a couple of seconds behind the McLaren as well in the podium places. Carlos Sainz has dropped 2.5 seconds behind Russell. Hamilton still within DRS range, but Oscar Piastri still falling behind those two. So Piastri not actually catching up to the top 5, even though he has dispatched Sergio Perez. Perez has dropped out of DRS range. And then Nico Hülkenberg running in 8th place outside DRS range of Sergio Perez as well. Then there's a bit of a train. Ocon, Magnussen, Gasly, Ricciardo, all within DRS touching distance of one another. And here comes the first couple of pit stops. It is Kevin Magnussen and Daniel Ricciardo. This is a little bit early for my liking, but going for it, possibly it's the two-stop strategy from Kevin Magnussen, Daniel Ricciardo. This needs to be a very swift stop from the Haas team. Otherwise, Daniel Ricciardo is going to get the advantage and jump ahead. And doesn't. Kevin Magnussen does stay ahead of Daniel Ricciardo through the pit stops. And Kevin Magnussen onto the hard compound tyre. Daniel Ricciardo onto the hard compound tyre as well. So we'll keep an eye on those two because they did have pretty good pace on the medium compound tyre. We'll see now how their pace is on a set of hards. And a scrub set of hards as well. So they're going to go long on those tyres. Kevin Magnussen and Daniel Ricciardo going for a very different strategy to the rest of the field. Lewis Hamilton has now dropped outside of DRS range of Carlos Sainz. And Nico Hülkenberg, I think, is also coming into the pit. So the Haas team using both of their drivers on this different strategy. I don't know about this. I feel like they should have split the strategy, right? One and the other. It's a very, very early stop for the Haas cars. Maybe just not happy with the performance of the medium compound tyre on the Haas. Wanting to get the hard compound tyre on earlier. Fernando Alonso also comes into the pits too. Kevin Magnussen coming around the first corner. And Kevin Magnussen might get the jump on his teammate here. No, slots in behind Nico Hülkenberg. It was very close though. Almost the undercut for Magnussen. And Magnussen actually is going to go for the move on Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg's tyre is that little bit colder. Magnussen up the inside. Hülkenberg around the outside is pushed off the circuit and rejoins it ahead of his teammate. But Magnussen is going to go for the move again down towards turn 4. DRS open as well. And Magnussen does get the run on his teammate. Magnussen now into 15th. Hülkenberg into 16th. The Haas team are not going to be overly happy about that. They kind of want those two to be working together. But Magnussen and Hülkenberg pit and go onto the hard compound tyre early. Both on a scrubbed set of hards as well. So they should last that little bit longer. Kind of get a heat cycle through them. And wonderful stuff from Magnussen gets him ahead of Nico Hülkenberg. It'll be interesting to see what their pace is like and whether they get the undercut and sort of stay ahead of Ocon and Gasly. Sergio Perez was in touching distance of the Hasses. So we'll see kind of how they do when they come in. I think that's Alex Albon now coming into the pits as well for the Williams team. Oh, thank you, Greshko, maybe, for the $2.99 super chat. Thank you, mate. Wow, loads of super chats in today. Massively appreciated the super chats. All the money that comes from super chats goes back into the channel. Make sure that we get things like this from multi-viewer and increases the quality of everything that we do. So massively, massively helpful, mate. If you are new to the channel, if you could hit that subscribe button, that would be amazing. And also, if you are enjoying the stream, hit the like button. That is the best thing that you can do to help the stream perform that little bit better. I can't remember how many likes we got yesterday. We got 246 likes yesterday during the Austrian Grand Prix qualifying session. So that's the goal, to be the top Austrian session so far this weekend. And then we nearly got 1,000 likes before we got 960 for the Monaco Grand Prix weekend. So if you want to try and beat the record, 1,000 likes is the one. Not sure about that one today. Yeah, a tough ask. I reckon you could get 250 though. 250 likes on the stream would be amazing. Let's have a little look at where Nico Hülkenberg is. Oh, Hülkenberg's got back past his teammate, Kevin Magnussen. Hülkenberg up into 14th place whilst we were just having a little discussion. Magnussen back into 15th. To be honest with you, the Haas team just don't need those two squabbling. He just needs to make sure that he gets through and can kind of try and gain and make sure that they stay in front of the two Alpines. Ocon and Gasly now running in 8th and 9th place. Tsunoda going for the opposite strategy to Ricciardo. And this is what I mean. I thought maybe the Haasers would do what RB have done here, where you kind of use the advantage of the fact that you've got two cars right there to switch the strategies. There you go. There is the confirmation over the radio. Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg being told on the radio, look, just look after your tyres. Kevin Magnussen doesn't really want to play the team game. DRS open for Kevin Magnussen, trying to look at Nico Hülkenberg and putting Hülkenberg under pressure. So they are still fighting. Kevin Magnussen on the radio, not really saying that he's going to play the team game at all. Hülkenberg up into 14th, Kevin Magnussen 15th, and it's worth kind of keeping an eye on their distance to Esteban Ocon. So where's Ocon? Ocon's 22 seconds off the lead. Hülkenberg 38 seconds off the lead. So yeah, with a pit stop, would stay ahead, and Magnussen would also gain that position as well right now. But obviously, Ocon will have the tyre advantage. There's Charles Leclerc dipping his tyres into the gravel. And Charles Leclerc still running around in 19th place. Has caught up to the back of Alex Albon. And Albon and Leclerc having a little battle between themselves at the back of the pack. Let's see then. Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Sainz, all on the medium tyre. This is around about when the medium tyre should start to go off, though. I think we will see a lot of tyres starting to come towards the end of their lifespan and some pit stops towards the top end of the grid. I think with Max Verstappen, where would he come out? Max Verstappen would come out very nicely between Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon, actually. So Max Verstappen, if he does pit now, comes out in a really lovely spot. I think for those cars behind Max Verstappen, the real worry is the Alpines. Because if Lando Norris pits now, he comes out right in and amongst the battle of the Alpines and Yuki Tsunoda, and then a little bit of traffic that he has to deal with. Whereas Max Verstappen seems to have the optimal strategy once again. Just feels like running at the front of the pack has given him that opportunity. Let's see, Lando Norris. Is he actually closing in on Max Verstappen in any way? Really? Oh, Charles Leclerc, box. Is this going to be another Charles Leclerc DNF? He's in the pits for the second time already. And no, he's back out. It's Charles Leclerc. 2.5 second stop. Medium compound tyres go on. Only 15 laps on those hard compound tyres, Charles Leclerc. Interesting. He's now got Max Verstappen coming down the pit straight. So Charles Leclerc is going to find himself lapped fairly swiftly. It's taken 18 laps, and Max Verstappen is already behind Charles Leclerc. Obviously, Leclerc having pitted twice, but not what Charles Leclerc would have wanted to see coming into a weekend where it felt like the Ferrari was on for a pretty solid performance. A lot of people kind of having Carlos Sainz or Charles Leclerc on their podium predictions. Not going to happen for Charles Leclerc at this point. Carlos Sainz still running in 4th place, though his teammate looking at the back of George Russell in 3rd. Logan Sargent under pressure from Charles Leclerc now as well. Nico Hülkenberg has caught up to the back of Zhou Guanyu. And Zhou Guanyu, of course, started from the pit lane on the hard compound tyre as well. So Hülkenberg needs to dispatch him fairly quickly if possible. And he's going to go for it. Nico Hülkenberg down into turn 3 and does get past the Stake Sauber car pretty swiftly. And then Kevin Magnussen is also right there as well. So looks like it's going to be 2 corners and 2 positions lost for Zhou Guanyu, as Kevin Magnussen also makes his way past the Chinese driver up into 14th place. So that is both of the Haasers then overtaking Zhou, and another 5-second gap for Hülkenberg to run into as he tries to catch the back of Valtteri Bottas, who is up next. Let's have a little look at Charles Leclerc then. Is this where another little bit of damage maybe got picked up? I know that was the overtake on Alex Albon. Nothing really running there. Pretty good overtake. But Charles Leclerc now back behind Alex Albon after pitting Lando Norris on the radio. Hard compound tyre looks poor, says the team. So wanting to make this medium compound tyre stint that little bit longer. That's not good news if you're Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen, is it? When you're running around on the hard compound tyre and you've gone for that strategy. But hard compound tyre, clearly from McLaren's perspective, not the one that they want on the car. And it was similar actually in Spain. The medium compound tyre on that McLaren car does seem to just be the one that works that little bit better for them. Max Verstappen still, though, edging away from Lando Norris. Norris now 6 seconds off the Grand Prix lead. And interesting that George Russell in 3rd place has actually started to close in on Lando Norris. Just a touch, like not a ridiculous amount, but closing in. And here comes Esteban Ocon. So keep an eye on Esteban Ocon here, because he was running in front of... he was running in front of Magnussen behind Hülkenberg. And he has lost out. Hülkenberg, Magnussen all make their way past. So does Daniel Ricciardo. So Ocon has really lost out in that run, kind of going on the medium compound tyre for that little bit longer. It's dropped him all the way down behind his ex-teammate Fernando Alonso. And Alex Albon also gets past as well. Albon's snuck through. So now Esteban Ocon, with a real task on his hands to get back up into the point-scoring places, going to have to get past Albon, Joe, Alonso, catch the back of Daniel Ricciardo, who has already pitted, and Hülkenberg and Magnussen in front as well. Maybe they do. Seems weird that they're not, trying the undercut. You're seeing that the Haas car there of Nico Hülkenberg has massively gained in terms of that undercut, because, Stroll's going to pit, Tsunoda's going to pit, Gasly's going to pit, and that's going to give... Oh! He got shunted. Zhou Guanyu hit into, and that was Fernando Alonso. Smashed into the side of the Sauber. That's very uncharacteristic Fernando Alonso, isn't it? Yeah, Gasly into the pits. Going to come out behind his teammates still. Gasly then in 16th place. Ocon has caught up to the back of Alex Albon, but Albon's trying to get past Zhou Guanyu. Joe possibly carrying some damage after that collision with Fernando Alonso. And Zhou Guanyu starting to go backwards very quickly. Obviously started from the pit lane, still on those hard compound tyres that he started with. And there goes Ocon past as well. So Albon and Ocon move past Zhou Guanyu, and Joe, just falling like a stone at this point. 20 laps into the Grand Prix. Here comes Lewis Hamilton. I genuinely think maybe the undercut is the one, Just looking at where Nico Hülkenberg is now compared to where he was when he came in. Does feel like the undercut is there. Maybe you go for the undercut on the hard compound tyre, though. So Lando Norris going longer on the medium will then be able to use the undercut on the hard compound tyre. That is where he'll be able to catch up that touch to Max Verstappen, still running 6 seconds behind the lead. Russell also then 5 seconds beyond that as well. Piastri on the radio. Hamilton crossed the white line on entry. Oh, Piastri trying to get Lewis Hamilton in a little bit of trouble. Sergio Perez, though. Sergio Perez come out behind Hülkenberg and Magnussen. This is what I mean. The undercut seems to be really solid for the Haas cars. It's just if that tyre advantage doesn't play into their favour. Oh, and Lewis Hamilton, a bit of oversteer. Ooh. It's very close to crossing the white line. Possibly his rear tyre going across the white line on the entry to the pit lane there, Lewis Hamilton. If it did, that will get him in a little bit of trouble. Can anyone explain why Leclerc is P19? Damaged his front wing at the start of the Grand Prix, had to pit and swap his front wing, then also had really poor tyre degradation on that first stint by the looks of things and had to pit again. If you could leave a like on the stream, though, subscribe to the channel if you're new, that would be absolutely amazing. Thank you for all of the support recently. It's been stunning on the channel. And now, actually, I'm looking at Lewis Hamilton's lap times here. And Max Verstappen, I think, is going to cover him off because Hamilton is absolutely flying on that fresh set of hard compound tyres. Carlos Sainz also has pitted. George Russell's gone onto a set of medium tyres for the second stint. So Russell going medium is the swap that they've done. Lando Norris covering off Max Verstappen and pitting too. I think they just don't want to be taken out by the cars in front. Let's see where Max Verstappen comes out. Oscar Piastri runs race leader now. Verstappen just behind. Oh, and Lando Norris has come out behind a Williams. It's not what you want to see. Come on, Lando. Get past him fairly swiftly. There we go. Down towards turn 3. Up the inside. And Lando Norris takes that position back. But just a little bit of overtaking that Lando Norris didn't really want to have to do. Lando Norris still 6 and a bit seconds off the race lead. Oscar Piastri going longest on this stint. Not something I was expecting. Piastri known for not really being the nicest to his tyres. Maybe Oscar Piastri doing his teammate a favour. Could hold up Max Verstappen a touch. Put Max Verstappen in some dirty air for a moment. Would be a racing move. Oscar Piastri wouldn't have to blue flag out of the way. Could have a little bit of a fight with Max Verstappen here. Just park it on the teammate. Lando Norris. Oh, yeah. It's Max Verstappen, possibly with an unsafe release. Ooh, that could get very tasty indeed. That was a very, very interesting stop. Lewis Hamilton with a penalty, though. And that might be Lewis Hamilton's penalty for crossing the pit lane entry. There you go. Oscar Piastri was right to dob Lewis Hamilton in. A 5-second penalty for Lewis Hamilton and possibly an unsafe release. For Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton running down in 6th place. That 5-second penalty wouldn't actually put him anywhere further back because Hülkenberg is 6.7 seconds behind. But could get tasty towards the end of the race. And Oscar Piastri comes into the pits, releasing Max Verstappen back into the lead of the race. Fastest lap of the race, though, goes to Lando Norris, who is now only 4.1 seconds behind Verstappen. Oh, no, he's 4.5 seconds behind Piastri. 6.7 seconds off Verstappen still. Where does Oscar Piastri come out then? Still in front of Hülkenberg? Yes. Lovely. Hamilton on the radio. And Hamilton apologizes over the radio. Wheel over the line. Lewis Hamilton at fault there. Not really too much he can complain about. Just lost the car as he was entering the pit lane. And the rear left tire just crossed the white line. Again, it's one of those things. You're in, you're in, you're out, you're out. It's a hard and fast penalty for Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, Max Verstappen still under investigation. Max Verstappen can show you the investigations as they pop up. Let's have a little look. So Lewis Hamilton, yeah, was given that penalty. Fernando Alonso with a penalty as well. Verstappen under investigation still. Lando Norris under investigation as well. What's that for? That's track limits. Under investigation for unsafe release. Oh, is that is the incident? Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, both unsafe release investigations underway. What's Joe Guan Yu under investigation for? Turn 3 incident involving the Fernando Alonso, of course. But Fernando Alonso given a 10-second time penalty for that. So 10-second time penalty for Fernando Alonso. 5-second time penalty for Lewis Hamilton. Lewis now needing to just see if he can get in front of Carlos Sainz and maybe help out George Russell a little bit towards the end. Although Max Verstappen absolutely flying on this hard compound tyre set. Now 7 seconds the lead of Verstappen. George Russell 3 seconds behind Norris. Another 4 seconds to Sainz. 3 seconds to Hamilton. 5 seconds to Piastri. The top 7 drivers really elongating themselves out along the course. You can see Verstappen all the way down to turn 4 now. Sergio Perez only just coming around turn 1. With Nico Hülkenberg now behind him. Hülkenberg and Magnussen have been overtaken by the Red Bull of Sergio Perez. Daniel Ricciardo has done really well up into 10th place. Ocon and Gasly will be so frustrated though. Obviously, the fresher tyres now with the hards. And they are going a bit quicker, but still Fernando Alonso to dispatch before they can actually catch up to the back of Daniel Ricciardo and start getting back ahead of the Hasses. That was the battle that they really wanted today, and the Hasses got in front in terms of track position. Kevin Magnussen has dropped off the back of Nico Hülkenberg quite a distance, actually. Oh, Verstappen. Not sure. Oh, Verstappen just having a little bit of a gear issue, possibly, towards the end of the straights. Obviously, was clipping a little bit during the sprint race, of course, Max Verstappen. So, possibly just having a little bit of a problem with those gears towards the end of those straights. Charles Leclerc has just got past Zhou Guanyu and up into 18th place in the Ferrari. But this is the battle that's really underway. Ricciardo, Alonso, and Ocon. Alonso and Ocon, of course, ex-teammates at Alpine. Aston Martin snagged Fernando Alonso away. Ocon leaving at the end of the year as well. But here we are. So again, Fernando Alonso on the medium tyre. Ooh. Didn't realise Fernando Alonso was on the medium compound tyre, actually, but there he is. Esteban Ocon trying to get past. Ooh, Charles Leclerc being told on this pace he will get into the points. So, some possible positivity at Ferrari. How far behind is Charles Leclerc? So, Charles Leclerc's 51 seconds off the lead. Daniel Ricciardo, 35 seconds off the lead. So, it's only a 16-second gap, to be fair, between the point scoring places and Charles Leclerc. Still a very long way to go. 42 laps left in this race. Max Verstappen just reminding the team that it is very windy here in Austria. Charles Leclerc, where are we? 4 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas. Keep an eye on Charles Leclerc and how quickly he catches the back of Valtteri Bottas. I think that will be a very interesting battle. In fact, should we have a little look at the projections then? Let's choose Daniel Ricciardo as our little look. Esteban Ocon. Also Charles Leclerc. Let's have a look at those three, shall we? Yeah, Charles Leclerc is closing in. Ricciardo and Ocon not really doing too much at this point themselves. And Charles Leclerc closing in. Yeah, I agree with Ferrari. He's on really good pace. Gaining on. Should we have a little look at it? Show you if you want. Charles Leclerc's the red. And just highlighted Daniel Ricciardo and Esteban Ocon. You can see Charles Leclerc just closing in terms of his delta, much more negative than those cars in front. Gaining and gaining on them. Impressive from Charles Leclerc. Maybe, just maybe, be able to save something here. Thank you to those couple of new subscribers. Abhin. Can't even say words. And Mahmood. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Jesus Christ. Carlos Sainz will overtake Russell. Let's have a little look. 4 seconds off the back of the Mercedes car. Obviously on the hard compound tyre, so we'll have the medium towards the end, whereas Russell going medium. Medium will be on the hard at the end of the Grand Prix, so could definitely swing in the Ferrari's favour. George Russell, though, trying to hold on to that podium place, was under pressure from Lewis Hamilton, remember, very early in the race, but Hamilton now with that 5-second penalty and has dropped off the back of Carlos Sainz quite substantially. Doesn't look like Hamilton is going to get back-to-back podiums this weekend. Sergio Perez with a penalty. Let's have a little look at that Sergio Perez penalty. What was that for? Speeding in the pit lane. Sergio Perez, 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Oh, goodness gracious. That's Hamilton and Perez with 5-second penalties. Alonso with a 10-second penalty. A lot of penalties rolling in at this point. Verstappen running at the front of the pack. Where is Sergio Perez in comparison to Hülkenberg? Exactly 5 seconds ahead. Wow, okay. So that now gives Hülkenberg another challenge here. First and foremost, Hülkenberg's got to keep himself outside of the range of the Alpines, who were closing into the back of this pack, although they haven't been able to get past Ocon and Ricciardo yet. So still playing into the Haas's favour at this moment in time. But Hülkenberg also, he can keep himself within 5 seconds. Maybe, just maybe, he could jump in front of Sergio Perez, get even more points on the Haas board. They would absolutely love to see it if they can get inside the top 7. Weren't expecting them to be inside the top 8, to be honest with you, although Charles Leclerc obviously dropping to the back of the pack has opened up that 8th place spot for another driver. Daniel Ricciardo, thankful for it because he's jumped up into the points in 10th place. Just give you a quick rundown. Max Verstappen leads the Austrian Grand Prix. Lando Norris in 2nd. George Russell running in 3rd place. And then we've got Carlos Sainz in 4th. Lewis Hamilton 5th. Oscar Piastri 6th. Sergio Perez 7th. Nico Hülkenberg 8th. Kevin Magnussen 9th. And rounding out the points, Daniel Ricciardo. The closest driver, Fernando Alonso in 11th place, although he's under pressure from Esteban Ocon in 12th. Gasly now complaining on the radio that he thinks he needs to get past Fernando Alonso pretty swiftly. Gasly down in 13th. Albon 14th. Tsunoda 15th. Charles Leclerc pits from 18th place. The 3rd pit stop for Charles Leclerc. Another set of medium tyres. Goodness me. 3rd pit stop for Charles Leclerc. There's gonna be another one coming up, to be honest. No further action then with Max Verstappen's unsafe release on Lando Norris. So Lando Norris, unfortunately, doesn't get that benefit. And Lando Norris actually now comes out on track with Charles Leclerc just beside him. Obviously, Charles Leclerc will have the blue flags waving. Oscar Piastri is running really quickly, actually. Piastri in 6th place is running a lot quicker than the cars in front. Have a little look. Oh, yeah, he is indeed. Oscar Piastri's doing really well. So just take a little look at this. Obviously, Oscar Piastri, this orange line towards the bottom here, was at the lead of the Grand Prix at one point. No longer the case. But Oscar Piastri, you can see his line getting closer and closer to Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton, obviously, with a 5-second penalty as well. So it does feel like Oscar Piastri, if he can keep himself here, he's on a similar sort of pace to Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. But the two Mercedes cars and the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz just dipping off a touch does mean that Oscar Piastri is going to start to close in. Is there a possibility of a podium on for Oscar Piastri? Maybe. Need to put in some really solid lap times on the next stint. But definitely open for Oscar Piastri to be making some moves here on a really good pace in comparison to the Mercedes in front. Fernando Alonso finally comes into the pits then and releases Esteban Ocon into the group of cars that he was actually racing. So Fernando Alonso comes in for his second stop. And here we go then. 10-second time penalty for Alonso as well. So looks like a really long pit stop, but obviously serving that 10-second penalty is Fernando Alonso. And just feels like he is sitting still forever, but is now back out on track and actually comes out behind Charles Leclerc. Thank you, McBlocks, for subscribing to the channel. Massively appreciated. What are those lines? The lines are the projected times of the drivers. So you can see how their lap times determine how far they are from the lead of the Grand Prix. And obviously when the lines cross, that means there's an overtake happening. So if the lines are getting closer and closer together, overtakes are on the way. Oh, Pierre Gasly side by side with Esteban Ocon, and Ocon up the inside of turn 3 does push his teammate really wide. No love lost between those two. And the Alpines, in getting past Fernando Alonso, also causing headaches for one another. Gasly still behind his teammate. And as much as they need to be catching up to the back of Daniel Ricciardo and catching up to the point scoring places, they're also now looking at a fight. Daniel Ricciardo having a fight of his own. Oh no, that's Yuki Tsunoda, sorry, with Alex Albon getting the move done. And taking 13th place in that little battle there. Albon losing out on that position. Oof. Oscar Piastri then much faster than Lewis Hamilton, gaining about 0.3 of a second on Lewis Hamilton every single lap at this point now. So Piastri really closing in on Hamilton. Hamilton with a 5-second penalty. Makes you wonder how much of a fight he'll really put up because, well, Piastri is within 5 seconds. So if the race were to end now, obviously Hamilton with another pit stop, so will serve his penalty then. Ocon and Gasly fighting one another once more. Ocon stays ahead of his teammate still, though. Daniel Ricciardo, I think, has come into the pits. He has indeed. So Daniel Ricciardo hitting from that position in front of the Alpines. Ocon and Gasly up into 10th and 11th place then, behind the Hasses that they were battling with before. Still 3 seconds off the back of Kevin Magnussen, though. And Magnussen has dropped 5 seconds behind Nico Hülkenberg. So Magnussen, as much as he wanted to battle with Nico Hülkenberg, has fallen away from him by a substantial amount. Nico Hülkenberg is outside of the 5-second range of Sergio Perez as well. So Hülkenberg not within that 5-second penalty range at this moment in time. Long way to go in this one still, though. Let's have a little look at how the live stream is doing. How many likes have we got? I haven't paid any sort of attention, but have we hit the 250 likes? If we haven't hit the 250 likes, guys, come on now. Come on. Hit that like button if you are enjoying the content. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, of course. Another boring race. I think it's just Max Verstappen is very, very quick around here. Oh, Max Verstappen, though, on the radio. I don't know what's happening. Suddenly, the tyres are really bad. Lando Norris, though, 8 seconds off the lead of this Grand Prix. The tyres are going to have to be really, really bad for that to make any kind of difference to him. Lance Stroll is having a little battle through the middle sector with Alex Albon, and Alex Albon is now starting to lose positions fairly swiftly. Lost a position to Tsunoda, and Lance Stroll has just made a move too. Hulkenberg pits. I think Haas still trying to go for that undercut. 32 laps left, though, for Nico Hulkenberg. Maybe another set of hard compound tyres. Oh, couldn't quite see. I think they pitted because they're coming out in quite a nice little gap. Nico Hulkenberg will come out behind Valtteri Bottas in a couple of seconds of clear room. Still ahead of his teammate, though. So Hulkenberg 13th now. Magnussen 14th. Ricciardo 15th. Unfortunately, a lot of these battles are only going to play out towards the end of the race. Although this battle is happening right now. Gasly goes around the outside of Esteban Ocon at turn 4. Ocon's going to try and come back at him at turn 5. And Gasly's going to hold it around the inside. Yes. And Gasly finally gets in front of his teammate. He's been on the radio complaining about Esteban Ocon's pace for I don't know how long. But the 2 years that those guys have been teammates, they've never really seen eye to eye, have they? Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. And the incident involving Ocon and Alonso has been noted. But we're now looking at Gasly, the leader of that back of the pack group. Sergio Perez, 7th place. Charles Leclerc, how's he been doing since his pit stop? A 110.1 last time around. Charles Leclerc now 5 seconds off the back of Daniel Ricciardo. Alpine's battling. I sense a safety car. It's getting pretty tasty between them, to be fair. Ocon having a look back at his teammate down towards turn 3. I think Gasly has got enough in the tank to get away from Ocon for now. Unless Ocon just absolutely goes for it into turn 4. Little switch back from Gasly was quite nice, though. Oh, there was a touch. I think there was a touch there between Gasly and Ocon. Just a little bumping of wheels. But Gasly did eventually get that move done. Around the outside. Took the long way around. But then had the inside of turn 5 to just make that move stick. Not sure that the Alpine team will be as supportive as the racing that we're seeing between the two of them. But it's a lovely little battle that Gasly just came out on top of. Esteban Ocon, I think, succeeding and taking the fact that he is now behind his teammate because he's just dropped off him a touch. Although he does have the DRS still. Could still happen. Gasly very happy to get his teammate out of the way and dispatched. Norris needs to push harder. I think he's pushing as hard as he can is the problem. Lando Norris just, especially on the hard compound tyre, I don't think we'll have the pace comparison to Verstappen. Verstappen still 7 seconds the lead. Is closing in Lando Norris at this point, by the way. But not enough to really make a difference. Russell, though, on the medium tyre, 9 seconds off that. Sainz then 4 seconds back as well. I think the only driver really looking like he can make any reasonable moves is Oscar Piastri, and he's running in 6th place. But the problem is Piastri's tyres are now going to start to wane a little bit more. And Pierre Gasly getting into the pits first. Oh, and it's not the best stop for Alpine ever. 3 seconds. Not the worst, but not the best. And Gasly out of the pits. And behind Charles Leclerc. Gasly's going to have a lovely little bit of room, though, to Charles Leclerc to run into as well on the medium compound tyre. See what Gasly is in terms of position. Daniel Ricciardo. So 8 seconds behind Daniel Ricciardo. Ooh. And Esteban Ocon running over the curbs and actually losing a little bit of his Alpine car. Something from the floor of the Alpine going off and into the grass. So Esteban Ocon taking some damage to the underside of his Alpine car as well now. Comes into the pits for his change of tyres, and Pierre Gasly's already out and will come out around about his teammate. Charles Leclerc, 4 seconds off the back. Gasly closing in on Leclerc as well. Tell you what, it's going to be a nice little battle. Charles Leclerc, 4 seconds off the back of Ricciardo. Gasly, 3.5 seconds back as well, but closing in to Charles Leclerc. Going to be a nice battle for the points here. 8th, 9th, and 10th place, very much up for grabs for a lot of drivers. Max Verstappen clears the traffic and now sets a fast lap time. So as much as Lando Norris was closing in, I think it maybe was just Max Verstappen having to deal with Ricciardo and Magnussen and Hülkenberg. I think now we're seeing Verstappen elongate his lead once again. 355 likes. That's ridiculous. Thank you guys so much for all of those likes. If you haven't hit the like button yet, completely free. Hit the like button is the main thing you can do to help out the stream and get it in the algorithm. Help out the channel as much as possible. But massively appreciative to all of you guys sticking with us, watching the Grand Prix. And Alex Albon with a 5-second penalty, failing to follow. Crossing the pit line. So Alex Albon joins the list of drivers with penalties. Quite a few now. Have a little look back at my investigations sheet. So Hamilton, that 5-second penalty. Perez, a 5-second penalty. Of course, Alonso had a 10-second one that he has now done. So yeah, it was literally just crossing the white line at pit entry for Albon. Nothing he can do about that. Hard and fast penalty, a mistake for him. Uncharacteristic from Alex Albon, you have to say. George Russell, box. George Russell's right in the thick of this real traffic as well. Horrible couple of laps for George Russell. Having to try and make his way past Alonso and Tsunoda and, oh, no. And there goes George Russell into the pits. See where George Russell comes out. Where is he? 21 seconds off the lead of Verstappen. So we'll come out just ahead of Sergio Perez, you'd imagine. Oh, I don't know. Actually, maybe Sergio Perez might be able to get the better of him. No, come out ahead of Sergio Perez. Russell out on those new hard compound tyres then. You'd imagine running to the end of the race then on those hard compound tyres, George Russell. Everyone who is on the hard compound tyre is going to be looking at that and thinking, when can I swap onto the mediums then? And it was Lance Stroll actually making a move on Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda trying to get out of the way of George Russell and Lance Stroll taking advantage of it. Yeah, that was what was, that might have been why George Russell wanted to come into the pits there. Oscar Piastri has started closing in on Lewis Hamilton once again. Oscar Piastri's tyres just that little bit fresher, 4-5 laps or so. Piastri now closing into the back of the Mercedes car. Lewis Hamilton, of course, with a 5-second penalty. So Hamilton, when he next pits, will have to stop and serve that. Talking of pits, Carlos Sainz comes in and releases Hamilton and Piastri past him. And Max Verstappen not happy on the radio. Oh, and there goes Oscar Piastri. Piastri up the inside of Lewis Hamilton. Is he going to be able to make it stick? Goes very wide at turn 3. Lewis Hamilton's going to come back at him. Of course, Oscar Piastri's going to have the DRS. He was behind at the detection zone. And Piastri does manage to get himself up into 3rd place. And you think now Oscar Piastri is properly in that fight with Russell and Sainz. Sainz and Russell are going to be looking at the pace of Piastri and trying to match it. Obviously, Russell now on the hard compound tyre as well. Carlos Sainz on the medium. And suddenly, all of these different strategies should start to converge towards the front end of the pack. Got Verstappen and Norris a clear number 1 and number 2, but that 3rd place position is up for grabs. Russell currently has it because Oscar Piastri has to pit. But depending on what Oscar Piastri can do here, we could be looking at a double McLaren podium, or even Carlos Sainz closing the gap to the Mercedes. 4 and a bit seconds off the back of Russell right now, but more than enough time left to go. 23 laps left in this Grand Prix. And Nico Hülkenberg is the man running in 8th place as well. Looking where Kevin Magnussen is. Got Ocon and Gasly in the Alpines fighting. Actually, Gasly's pace on the medium tyre is not that much better than Nico Hülkenberg on the hard. I think Haas have played a really solid strategy game here to get both of their cars into the points. Daniel Ricciardo is under pressure from Charles Leclerc. I was assuming Charles Leclerc is probably going to have to pit again, though, in 11th place. Max Verstappen just being told. Lando Norris closing in. Verstappen saying that he's under pressure from Hülkenberg and Magnussen behind. Needs to do something about it. And this is the problem. With such a short circuit like we have in Austria, we're seeing the traffic becomes a real thing. We've got Hülkenberg and Magnussen, who are actually behind Verstappen by a lap, but are going quicker. And Hülkenberg particularly quicker than Max Verstappen on the last lap, and right under the rear end of the Red Bull. Charles Leclerc fighting with Daniel Ricciardo. Pierre Gasly just behind as well. Gasly and Leclerc, of course, good friends. Will want to get side by side once more. Charles Leclerc, though, trying to get back into the points after having to pit right at the beginning of the Grand Prix. If Charles Leclerc pits again, it's over. If he pits now, but the problem is Charles Leclerc's tyres are 10 laps older than Pierre Gasly behind, and Gasly is closing into this pair. And in fact, actually, Charles Leclerc... Oh, and here goes Pierre Gasly. I said it. He caught me by surprise, let alone catching Charles Leclerc by surprise. And Gasly up into 11th place. Charles Leclerc's going to try and come back at him, but Lando Norris is in front of those two as well. And needs to be careful. Charles Leclerc, just gets a little bit heavy on the brakes. Lando Norris actually causing a little bit of a headache for Pierre Gasly there. But Gasly caught me by surprise. I thought he was closing in on Leclerc. Didn't think he'd lunge straight up the inside, but he did. And Charles Leclerc drops down into 12th place. And this is what I mean. I do think the Ferrari does need to stop again. The problem... Gasly, though, now 3.6 seconds off Ricciardo, and those point-scoring places. I think Lando Norris is peeling off into the pits. He is. Lando Norris into the pit lane. Max Verstappen as well. Ooh, slow stop for Max Verstappen. Oscar Piastri, box of box as well. Looks like they're going to double stack the McLarens. Does Oscar Piastri peel in? He does. Hamilton gets past Oscar Piastri once again. But Piastri into the pits. And this is where Piastri needs to keep an eye on Carlos Sainz and George Russell. Verstappen on the radio. Not very happy at all. It was a very slow stop from Verstappen, actually. Lando Norris now only 2.8 seconds off the leader this Grand Prix. Has that just opened the door for Lando Norris to close in? I mean, there's a lot of traffic still. Oh, and Verstappen with a lockup. Verstappen nearly going off the track at turn 4. Verstappen just losing his head a little bit here, maybe. Bottas causing him a problem behind in the Sauber, having to get past Lando Norris now 1.8 seconds off the lead. And I'll tell you what, it's kind of opened the door a little bit here. Lando Norris on a fresh set of mediums to Max Verstappen's used set of mediums and a lockup for Verstappen. These tyres are going to start to swing in Lando Norris's favour if he can get past this Bottas-Alonso problem that he's got. And please, Alonso and Bottas just get out of the bloody way. Bottas does get out of the way, lets Lando Norris pass, but Fernando Alonso next up for him. Verstappen had to get past in the middle sector, and it was that rear left, maybe? No, the rear right? Not sure. Just seemed to be a bit of a delay there with the Red Bull pit stop. But Lando now properly back in and amongst it. Oscar Piastri then has come out 6 seconds behind Carlos Sainz, so keep an eye on Oscar Piastri's pace. Whether or not he's going to be able to close in on the Ferrari was looking very, very quick. Oscar Piastri obviously got past Hamilton. Hamilton has yet to have pitted. That's why he's still running in third place. So it is George Russell holding on to third place at this moment in time. But you see Carlos Sainz, 4.9 seconds off the back of him, 5 seconds to Piastri. It's not over and done with yet, especially as Hamilton is about to pit. George Russell has put in the fastest lap of anybody so far, by the way, with an extra point up for grabs for that. Hulkenberg running in 7th place, with Sergio Perez dropping down to 10th after his pit stop. You'd imagine Sergio Perez is going to be able to fly back through this group of cars. He's already on the back of Daniel Ricciardo as Sergio Perez, and putting him under pressure. Lando Norris is actually closing in. Lando Norris now 1 second off the back of... Is that a DRS? That is DRS for Lando Norris, ladies and gentlemen. Lando Norris is right in the mix with Max Verstappen. That pit stop could be the nail in Max Verstappen's coffin. We've got a race starting now. Lando Norris, 0.7 seconds, and the fastest lap of the Grand Prix last time around was Lando Norris by 0.7 of a second. Lando Norris now going for it. Lando 2 wins already being talked about in the chat. Still a long way to go. 18 laps left of this Grand Prix. Come on, Lando. Let's go. Lando Norris needs to just keep within that DRS range, though. Looking at the traffic, he's got Stroll and Albon coming up. Does Stroll and Albon need to pit? A little bit. Stroll and Albon could pit. That'd be nice. Just get out of the way. Verstappen maybe getting a little bit of DRS, though. If he gets to within touch and distance of Lance Stroll is the problem. Lando Norris with DRS himself. And this is the problem with those back markers. This is what I said. The traffic plays into your hand. Lando Norris having a little look down towards turn 3. Moves his nose up alongside. Max Verstappen has a sniff at a move, but doesn't quite go for it now. Down to turn 4 with DRS. He going to have a go again? No, not this time. Lando Norris, though, now within half a second of Max Verstappen, putting him under real pressure. And Lando Norris on the radio complaining, saying Max Verstappen reacted to his move. So Max Verstappen might be in a little bit of trouble if Lando Norris is correct. You're not allowed to move under braking, of course. Lando Norris on the radio. Not very happy at all. And now, wanting that position. Lando Norris, though, catches up to the back of the Williams. Come on, just get Albon and Stroll out of the way, please. Max Verstappen is actually going to get a bit of a run. Lando Norris is going to be let through as well, but I don't know if Lando Norris is still going to have DRS with Max Verstappen, because Verstappen's going to gain that DRS from Lance Stroll. Not sure. Might have just... The fact that these 2 back markers there, Albon and Stroll, might have just ruined Lando Norris's chances here. Still going to have the fresher tyres, of course, though. And Verstappen, a little bit of a replay of this. Let's have a look. Ooh. He wasn't alongside or anything like that, but Lando Norris does jut towards the inside, and then Max Verstappen kind of covers across. Was that a little bit too late from Max Verstappen? Stewards will have a little look. Lando Norris, come on, within a second. Yes. Okay, Lando Norris is still within DRS. Max Verstappen on the radio, not happy at all, saying that there might be something wrong with the car. Wow, okay. Carlos Sainz, by the way, is closing in on George Russell for 3rd place. Oscar Piastri starting to close in on 4th place too. And this is what I mean. The convergence of the strategies is starting to happen. We're seeing all of those strategies starting to play out in slightly different ways. And seeing Verstappen and Norris having a little fight towards the front. Russell holding on to 3rd. Sainz and Piastri, though, trying to close in on the Mercedes. Hamilton running in 6th place all by himself. Hulkenberg holding on to 7th place, but is now under pressure. Sergio Perez is back through that pack, by the way. He's made swift work of Ricciardo and Magnussen, and Perez trying to get back into the top 7, sorry. Trying to get past Nico Hulkenberg. Gasly, though, closing into the back of Daniel Ricciardo as well. So there's moves to be made. And Gasly, wanting to get back up into the points, needs to dispatch Ricciardo within a second of him. And looking at him going down towards turn 1. Gasly right on the rear end of... But this is the real battle here. Lando Norris, 0.7 of a second off Verstappen. Lando Norris down towards turn 3 they go then. He does like to have a little look, does Lando Norris. Not this time, though, but it's closed in properly to Max Verstappen. Lando Norris with the DRS wide open, down in towards turn 4. Come on, Lando, have a little go. Nope, not this time around. Lando Norris not close enough this time around. Lando Norris versus Max Verstappen, and it's starting to heat up here in Austria. It was that mistake by the Red Bull team in the pit stops. It's just open this window up. Lando Norris with the fresher medium tyres. This was what Mercedes. This is what McLaren were hoping for in this race. Holding on to that other set of medium tyres, knowing that Lando would have the tyre advantage towards the end of the race. But then massively helped by the Red Bull issue as well. Lando Norris with a track limits infringement. Just don't get too many of those, please, Lando. Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. He's going to go for it. Lando Norris with a big lock-up into turn 3, but takes the lead of the Grand Prix. Did he gain an advantage by leaving the track there? You could argue. Lando Norris comes out ahead. Max Verstappen's going to try and come back at him at turn 4. Does come back at him. And Lando Norris loses that position. I did think that when he went off at turn 3, kind of opened the door to Max Verstappen to come back at turn 4. And Verstappen does. Yeah, I thought he would have to give that position back anyway. Maybe Lando Norris just playing it safe there, giving the position back. He overtook whilst off the track, in my opinion, which is not allowed, of course, in the McLaren. Lando Norris, the lunge up the inside. Just didn't quite make the track. Yeah, just locked that front right tyre as well. But Lando Norris still within touching distance of Verstappen then. And I think that move there from Lando Norris was actually very strategic, because it does mean that they're able to get past Logan Sargent at a slightly different point of the track. And it does mean that Lando Norris is going to be right on the rear wing of Max Verstappen once again. I don't think he's going to go for the move this lap, but I do think he's going to close that gap once more. Ocon, Gasly, and Ricciardo up in front, by the way, and they're all fighting for position and points available. Lando Norris looking at the rear wing of Max Verstappen once again. 0.6 seconds off the rear wing. Goodness gracious me. Oh, thank you, Sally, for the super chat. Massively appreciated. Love your passion. Thank you, Sally. You are one of the absolute OGs of the channel. Massively appreciated. Lando Norris incident. Track limits noted. Lando Norris also on the radio. Just discussing with his engineer. 11 laps left to go once they come past the start-finish line. Lando Norris still within a second of Verstappen. Verstappen, though, closing up to Esteban Ocon. Lando Norris, though, half a second the gap down towards turn 3. Can he have a go this time around? Come on, Lando. Let's see what you got. Tucks in behind him for turn 3. Maybe a little bit of a switchback, similar to what we saw with Gasly. Goes a little bit wide at turn 3. to try and get a run down towards turn 4. I think this is going to be the opportunity for Lando Norris. DRS open, tries to go around the outside of turn 4. Max Verstappen does everything he possibly can to make it awkward, and does make it just that little bit too awkward for Lando Norris, who can't get the move done. Max Verstappen stays in the lead of this race. I like that little move, though, from Lando Norris at turn 3. Ooh. Verstappen on the radio, also complaining. And these two are it's going to be right down to the wire between them. Track limits violation under investigation from the FIA stewards still. Lando Norris, DRS wide open again. They come down. It's so frantic, this Grand Prix, because it's only a 60-second lap. So you get yourself a run at the driver in front. Max Verstappen, though, trying to get past the Alpine of Ocon. Ocon also moving out of the way of Lando Norris. Doesn't want to get in the way of this battle. Lando Norris right under the rear wing of Max Verstappen at turn 3. Couldn't have got closer to the back of the Red Bull if he tried, I don't think. DRS open towards turn 4 again. Is he going to peel to the inside this time? No, decides against it. Holds his position. Lando Norris just biding his time a little bit. Obviously, Ocon there, just in the way of both cars. So maybe Lando Norris just thought, whilst they're trying to dispatch the Alpine in front, maybe not the position for Lando Norris to go for an overtake. There wasn't that kind of jink to the left that we saw from Lando Norris in turn 3. I think that's going to be the giveaway as to when he's going to go for a maneuver. Maybe he's going to try and catch Max Verstappen off guard, though, a little bit. Verstappen, half a second the gap to Lando Norris still. Also, whilst we're kind of watching this, there's a lot of battles kind of playing out behind. Pierre Gasly still within a second of Daniel Ricciardo. Also, by the way, Oscar Piastri is closing in. But no, here goes Lando Norris up the inside of turn 3. He's pushed Max Verstappen wide. And Max Verstappen's going to hold on to the position. Hulkenberg got a penalty for that, for the move on Fernando Alonso. Very similar in the sprint race. Not sure whether Lando Norris will quite get the same. I think Max Verstappen going wide off the racetrack. Lando Norris arguing that he was ahead at the apex. Not sure that argument is really going to fly with Max Verstappen. Can't see the Dutchman giving you the position, Lando, I'm afraid. Going to have to be 9 more laps of hard racing between these two. It's going to go right down to the wire. And Lando Norris complaining on the radio. Max Verstappen complaining on the radio about being forced wide off the track. These two not giving each other a millimeter and complaining about everything that the other driver is doing. But here comes Lando Norris again, even closer this time around, actually. Lando Norris, the closest he's been going down towards turn 3 in a little while in terms of that lap time. Lando Norris, there you go. Oh, and there's contact! Oh, and the rear wheel of Max Verstappen has come off! There's massive contact between the two. Yellow flag in Sector 2. Lando Norris on the grass as Max Verstappen peels off to the inside of the racetrack. But Max's rear left tyre has come off completely. He's going to have to defend. Lando Norris locks up. And Lando Norris won't come past. Is Lando Norris in head? He's there. Max Verstappen, his rear left tyre has come off. Lando Norris into the lead. Oh, this could be controversial, though. This could be very controversial indeed. I need to see a replay of that. Lando Norris has picked up a penalty, and it's a 5-second penalty for Lando Norris. This might even open the door for George Russell, you know. George Russell's going to take the lead in here. Max Verstappen with a puncture. Lando Norris with a puncture as well. And George Russell out of nowhere is leading the Austrian Grand Prix. George Russell takes the lead. Piastri then moves up into the podium places. Carlos Sainz in second. And Piastri is now looking at a second place. Piastri's closing into the back of Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz also closing into George Russell. And Verstappen, massive, massive collision between the two. Punctures for both. Verstappen comes into the pits then. Nice stop from Red Bull. That's going to release Verstappen back out into the race. Lando Norris is only just making his way into the pit lane. And Lando Norris had a much bigger puncture than Verstappen. That's going to do a lot of damage to the rear end of that car. And Oscar Piastri now realizes that he's in the hunt for a race victory. Oscar Piastri going around the outside of Carlos Sainz. This is for second place. And Piastri does it. Piastri moves up into second place ahead of Carlos Sainz. It's absolute chaos to end the Austrian Grand Prix. Now, let's have a look at this then. Oscar Piastri, 2.7 seconds the gap to George Russell, has got the move done. And Lando Norris in the pits. A front wing change. And Lando Norris has taken the wheel out of his car. I think he's given up on the Grand Prix. And he is. Lando Norris in the pits, out of his McLaren car. And he's had enough. 66 laps of the race completed. And it's a virtual safety car. It's a virtual safety car. For what? For who? For what? Oscar Piastri. It's gone from Lando Norris being the McLaren that looks like he could take the victory to Oscar Piastri. What's happened? Why is there a virtual safety car? What is going on? George Russell going slowly. Piastri behind the safety car. Alex Albon is also there as well. Piastri's actually dropped to 5 seconds off George Russell. The virtual safety car is out. Are we going to see a full safety car? Full safety car, please. Full safety car, please. Can I influence that? can I get in touch with the stewards for a full safety car, please? I'm on my knees. Oh my goodness me. Piastri has the opportunity here for a first Grand Prix victory in the McLaren. Closing into the backs of Alex Albon right now, unfortunately. Virtual safety car has stopped. So we are back underway, racing once more. Goodness me. Lando Norris and Max Verstappen making contact. Where has Verstappen actually come out? 5th place. 5th place for Verstappen. Oh, and there was a lot of damage to the rear end of that McLaren. No wonder they decided to retire the car of Lando Norris, because that is a huge amount of damage to the rear end. George Russell, race leader now for the Mercedes team. 3 seconds the gap to Oscar Piastri in second spot. 5 laps left to go as well. Oscar Piastri, DRS, because he's moving past the Williams of Alex Albon. Logan Sargent. Logan Sargent? Carlos Sainz running in 3rd place. I've lost my head. Goodness gracious me. George Russell looks like he is going to try and win this race. Lando Norris ruining that collision with Verstappen. Verstappen continues on in 5th place. Hülkenberg has moved up into 6th amongst all of that chaos as well. Gasly still not in the points, frustrated by Ricciardo. Oh no, sorry, will be in the points now because of Lando Norris. So Gasly up into it. Verstappen with a penalty, and it's a 10-second penalty for Max Verstappen, although that won't really cause too much of a problem for him. He's still running in 5th place and won't be any consolation to Lando Norris, who is now out of the Grand Prix. And I'll tell you what, Oscar Piastri is not closing the gap quick enough. George Russell is going to take the victory here. George Russell has played an absolute blinder, managing to keep that position, managing to keep the podium place. And the door has opened to him. Mercedes looking like they could pick up their first Grand Prix victory since the 2022 Brazilian Grand Prix. Nico Hülkenberg in 6th place for Haas is now under pressure from Sergio Perez. Perez trying to get back in front of the Haas car, but Hülkenberg doing a great job at turn 3 to hold on to it. Going to go down towards turn 4. Let's see if Sergio Perez is going to try and make a move. Not this time around. Haas running both their cars in the points. Daniel Ricciardo still holding on to 9th place, frustratingly for Gasly. Ocon then also 11 at 11th place for the Frenchman, 6.5 seconds off of his teammate. So it's looking like the top 10 is pretty settled in. Fastest lap now goes to Max Verstappen. He's trying to get as many points back as he can after losing the lead of this Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, a 1 minute 7 second lap time. It's not going to get him close enough to Lewis Hamilton in 4th place, though. Sergio Perez looking at the Nico Hülkenberg's Haas once again. George Russell, 2 seconds the lead to Oscar Piastri. 3 laps left to go. It's going to be an absolute run to the line for those two. George Russell getting past the back marker of Logan Sargent. Come on, Sargent, get out of the way of Oscar Piastri, please. 2 seconds the gap then between Russell and Piastri. George Russell comes around turn 1, still leading this. Why is Sargent still ahead of Oscar Piastri? Get out of the way. He's lost a couple of attempts there, Piastri. It's George Russell's race to win. I think this is going to be it for George Russell. He won last time for Mercedes a couple of years ago. Lando Norris in the garage. You can see the frustration on his face. Max Verstappen, a 10-second penalty for that collision, but doesn't really play out anything in the way of Lando Norris, who is now out of the Grand Prix. The one and only retirement, actually, that we've got from the Austrian Grand Prix. And George Russell, take a bow. Done everything right. Played the strategy perfectly. And now is going to come around the final sector and look like he is going to take a victory for the Mercedes team. George Russell coming around the final corner to start the final lap of the race. George Russell 1 lap away from another victory for Mercedes. Coming around turn 1, looks comfortable. 2.5 seconds the gap to Oscar Piastri. Carlos Sainz then 2.5 seconds behind that in 3rd. This is going to be it. George Russell is going to take the victory out of nowhere. And 3 tenths quicker than Piastri. Russell elongating his lead on that last lap as well. Just showing that he's got that little bit left in the tank. George Russell doing everything he needed to. Piastri 2nd, Carlos Sainz 3rd, Hamilton 4th. Max Verstappen finds himself now down in 5th place. And it was that mistake at the pit stops for Verstappen that opened the door to Lando Norris. And then the collision with the McLaren has dropped him all the way down to 5th. Hülkenberg holding on to 6th place still. Has Hülkenberg been able to hold on to it? Yes, Sergio Perez is going to have a go, though. 1 more lap for Sergio Perez to try and make it count. And Sergio Perez is going to go for it. But here it is then. George Russell round the final corner. Take a bow. George Russell, he is a race winner once again for the Mercedes team. Oscar Piastri comes home in 2nd place. Carlos Sainz rinds out the podium places. And what a finish we had to the Austrian Grand Prix. It was absolutely stunning. The battle between Verstappen and Norris playing in the hands of George Russell, of all people. And here comes Sergio Perez on Hülkenberg. Isn't going to be able to get past. Max Verstappen is in 5th place and comes across the start-finish line 5th with the fastest lap as well for Max Verstappen. But it's all eyes on Nico Hülkenberg. He's running in 6th place for the Haas team. Let's see what he can do. The German driver has been stunning for Haas throughout the entire year. And he's going to come around the final couple of corners. He's going to hold Sergio Perez at bay. The Red Bull of Sergio Perez not able to do it. And Nico Hülkenberg comes home in 6th place. You have to hand it to Haas as well. They've had a stunning race in 6th. And now 8th place as well for Kevin Magnussen. Take a bow, Haas. Daniel Ricciardo also picks up a couple of points in 9th place. A really solid drive from him. Just felt like the strategy that they went for was the optimal. Getting that early pit stop in and putting the hard compound tyres on has played in favour of both Haas's and Daniel Ricciardo. Gasly was the real loser. Felt like he could have been up there with Nico Hülkenberg, but has to settle for 10th place. Charles Leclerc, stunning drive from him actually. 11th overall today. I keep saying stunning, not sure why. Great drive from Charles Leclerc today to get up into 11th place after that damaged front wing. Not really too much that the Ferrari could do with 4 pit stops having to be had as well. Esteban Ocon comes home in 12th. Stroll 13th. Yuki Tsunoda 14th. Alex Albon in 15th place, Bottas and Joe side by side in 16th and 17th. Fernando Alonso actually sneakily took the fastest lap there at the end from Max Verstappen, so no bonus point. But Fernando Alonso comes home 18th place, so no bonus point for him either. Logan Sargent at the back of the pack in 19th place. And Lando Norris, the one and only DNF from the Austrian Grand Prix. And there will be a lot of discussions about that, I am sure, between not only him, McLaren, but also the stewards as well. Let's see how it was then. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could leave a like on the video, that'd be absolutely amazing. Thank you to all of the super chats today as well. Loads of super chats in for the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. Massively appreciative of that. Lots of videos coming out this week, and of course we're live for Silverstone next week as well, so make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the live commentary for both qualifying and the Grand Prix in Silverstone, because if it's anything as heated as this, it's gonna get very tasty indeed. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm going to disappear. We'll be back live again in just a couple of hours' time with actually Liam Talks Motorsport to talk through the absolute chaos that was the end of that Austrian Grand Prix. Thank you again. I'll see you next time.